Hey everybody, welcome to this video that will be an introduction to this course, Popular Culture in the US. And the goal of it is really to give kind of the 30,000 foot view of where we're going to go and why we're going to go there, and what I hope you're going to get throughout this course. So first off, let me just welcome you and say, isn't it great we have this opportunity to engage and study in popular culture and really understand something that is all around us, that we see in, stumble upon in millions and millions of ways throughout our days. So it's a really cool opportunity, right? It's something that is so much part of our lives that we don't always have the opportunity or the luxury to explore in critical ways, not just to understand, but to really even get a better sense of ourselves and why we gravitate towards certain pop culture and over others. So let's go into the modules and we'll just kind of walk through what we're covering. So this first week, this getting started, is really just initially starting to percolate some ideas about what pop culture is and why it's valuable or why it's worth studying. And that brings us into the second week where we really ask that question in a deeper manner, and we don't always come up with answers, or we don't come up with a single answer. We'll look at different articles and videos on this subject, and we'll be really trying to think about, how and what is it we do when we study pop culture, and what is the result of that? Does it give us better pop culture? Does it make us understand why people, follow particular pop cultures? So we'll be exploring that. We then will move into two of the bigger mythologies that permeate a lot of popular culture. And the first is Westerns and cowboys, and just this idea of the cowboy is such a present figure in much of our pop culture. Even when it's not a Western, the cowboy shows up in all different types of environments. And so we will be looking at that character and how much that character is relevant, and how that character is played with and changed. And it's not just cowboys anymore, right? We see much more interesting dynamics about the fluidity of our conception of that. We also will tackle the rags to riches theme that we see throughout American culture, right? And this is that idea of, you go from a impoverished condition to becoming rich, and where that comes from, how that influences our views on things, how that influences or different stories, where it pops up in the like. And what does that tell us about American culture that's such a strong mythology that you can come here and in a single generation, you can leap from Ben Franklin is probably one of the most iconic examples of this, where he arrives in a town with nothing but like $5 and a loaf of bread, and he somehow becomes one of the U.S. history's most well-known and established people, and how that happens. So after that, we move into a couple weeks where we tackle what I frame as issues or things that we see as problematic in how pop culture encodes or represents race, ethnicity, gender, sex, sexuality, where some of that comes from and how it plays out in our culture, and even how it has been, in some ways, how it's being redefined. I think particularly in the last 20 to 30 years, how these concepts are, in some areas of popular culture, being redefined, whereas in others, they still are being upheld in what we consider problematic ways. The next 4 weeks are really delving into the different types of technology. So one thing about popular culture is it's derived from really technology, and the idea, the ability to mass produce or create massive engagement. And so we start to look at where some of those things have come from. So we look at the birth of the mass publishing and mass printing in the 1800s in the United States. We move on to taking a look at the production of, or the mass proliferation of, film, and what that meant in the early 20th century. We look at the rise of radio and radio entertainment, right? So old-time radio, old-time music, all the way, that was the start of what we see now, which is, of course, regular Still traditional FM and AM radio, but then we also have this whole world of podcasts, and we have this whole world of all sorts of music that we can carry or we can stream on our various devices, right? So how we go from that idea of, you know, just it going onto the radio to everybody having their own self-created radio stations of all sorts of entertainment. And then finally we start to look at digital and the ways in which digital technology and digital communication start to play a role in the ways in which we construct our identity. After that, for the next 4 weeks, we do case studies. Now, I have several listed here. These may not be the ones that we're doing because one of the assignments students can do is actually create their own case study that we all get to learn from. But for right now, these are the ones that we are looking at. We're looking at horror comics and censorship in the 1950s. For the second case study, we're going to actually look at zombie narratives in a post 9/11 area, in a post 9/11 time. So really looking at the early 2000s and where zombie narratives came from. Then we're going to look at fandoms and just understand what they are, what they aren't, what goes on in them. And then finally, we're going to talk about consumerism in the environment and how, when we're dealing with mass production, how does that relate to the ways in which buying then becomes part of our identity, becomes part of the way we participate in popular culture. And then the final week, we come back to this question, what is popular culture? What is it that we're studying? Or what is it that we have studied at the end of this? So that's the large structure of the course. What I'm hoping more than anything that students get out of this is just the sense of how complex and rich popular culture is and how it is something of value to many people in many different ways, and really just what sense we can make out of it, both to understand other people, other cultures, people that are different than us in categorical ways, you know, people of different genders, people of different sexes, races, etc., how we can better understand the pop culture that they engage in and what it might provide for them. And then also, of course, what it provides and makes us understand about ourselves. I think there's a lot of great things out there in popular culture worth studying, and I'm hoping in this class to spur some of your own curiosity and interest and enthusiasm to dig deeper into those things and see what we find. So hopefully this is helpful. This gives you a sense of what to look forward to, what to anticipate. As always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to use the questions form or send me an email. Thank you so much.